night and day. And took the exam on Friday, thought I had done pretty decently. And I got back to class on Monday, and the teacher, before he gave the exams, the graded exams back, he went to the board and wrote the high score on the board. And he wrote the average score on the board. And he wrote the lowest score on the board. And I kind of slumped down in my seat. And I looked over at the people that were sitting next to me, and I kind of snickered, and I said, well, I feel sorry for the person who got that lowest score. When I got my exam back, I was the one who had gotten that lowest score, 4 out of 26. I worked hard for that 4 out of 26. But I was not pleased. I was not pleased. Because I couldn't believe that I had studied so hard, and this was the result. I was so accustomed to getting A's. And I learned quickly, too, that there's always somebody out there that's better than you. Always. So when you get in a moment, for the young folk that are sitting here, and some of us older folk too, we get in that moment where we think that we have arrived, and we feel that we are at the pinnacle and the height of our success, and we have made it. Always remember, there's always somebody out there better. Always. And I wanted to give up. And I wanted to go home, wanted to go back to D.C. because if this was going to be the trend, I didn't want to be a part of it. Called my mom and talked about, what I was experiencing. And interestingly, when I think back on that now, and this is the first time it came to me, as I was talking to my mom, there was that feeling within me that I could not let her know that I was struggling. Because it meant that for me, for one, I would have to be expressing a vulnerability when I was always one who was able to keep it together. I was always one who was able to somehow make it through independently. And then at the same time, I didn't want her worrying about me. So I didn't tell her that I was struggling initially. But I did tell her that I, noticed that I kind of felt like I didn't really fit in with my peers, and that, I really didn't know if I wanted to stay, but I never shared with her that academically I was struggling. Wanted to give up, but then I thought about those people that, had invested so much in me. My mom being one of those people who really had invested time, money, prayer, resources, across the board. What would quit it mean to her? It would hurt her. What would quit it mean to people in my church that had invested so much in me to get to that point? That would have hurt them, and it would have killed a dream. Because interestingly, growing up at a very young age, my mom exposed me to the importance of making good choices. And when I was very, very young, she would take me through the community, and she would show me different people in the community that she felt were positive people, that were okay to speak to and to seek advice from. And then she showed me some of the negative people. And some of those negative people included the drug dealers, included the people who were always in trouble, especially young folk my age. And she encouraged me not to get too involved with them. Interestingly, as I got older and got to high school, those drug dealers became some of my biggest supporters. They supported me because they, for one, knew what my dreams were. They knew what I was aspiring to achieve. And they approached me from the aspect of, well, I know that I don't have any chance of achieving what you're trying to achieve. So I'm gonna put my bet on you. And they encouraged me to move forward. And as sad as it felt to be in that position, I was up to the challenge of taking the torch. Because I realized that success is not just individual, but it impacts other people. It impacts a group. It impacts your family. It impacts your community. And so I took that on early on. And so when I wanted to quit, I thought about those drug dealers. You know, in some way, shape, or form, I was a beacon of light and hope for them. They could look to me and could be proud. I could hold up the banner of my community, even though it had there were negative stereotypes about it, and with regard to what people saw on television. But you know, I was this example, at least one of many examples, because I believe that there's so much good that comes out of those communities. You just don't hear all the stories. But I was in a unique and unfortunate place where I was able to have my story told to many. And so I took on that torch, and that was enough to help me decide that I didn't want to give up, I didn't want to quit. And then those dream busters that I talk about in the book, those people who were quick to tell me that I could not or would not, or that I didn't have what it took, or were quick to tell me about statistics and how other folk didn't make it. Believe it or not, they inspired me. They motivated me. And I thought about what quitting would mean to them, and it would validate basically every doubt they had in their mind about me. So I decided I'm not going to give them the victory of seeing me defeated. So I went on through the program. I kept my head up as high as I possibly could after that 4 out of 26. I had to pick up them pieces and I had to keep it moving. And such is life. I've had to do that all the time. Pick up the pieces, keep it moving. I had to remember why I decided to go to MIT. I had to remember that I was there to learn and get an education. So, ended up studying hard, and at this point I realized that I needed to take more advantage of the resources around me, the tutoring and the resources that were available to the students. And got to about the 5th week of this 6-week program, and my scores had improved tremendously. The progress that was made was remarkable, and it was inspiring to me to see what could be accomplished if I had put in a little more oomph to the work and to all that was in front of me to do. And was so excited about my progress that I decided that I wanted to apply to MIT for undergraduate studies. And I went in to meet with the director, as every student did, at the 5th week of the 6-week program. And he and I began to talk about my future, and I had told him that I was interested in applying to MIT based on the level of progress that I was able to make socially and academically. I felt that the progress was indicative of future success, that I had what it took to make it at MIT. And as I told him this, he was going through my record. He looked at my grades. I was an A student. He looked at my recommendations, and those were stellar, and he got down to my SAT scores. And my SAT score was a 19 out of 1,600 at that time, which was 400 points below the average SAT score of students entering MIT. So he looked at me after he looked at that SAT score, and he said, "I don't think so. You are not MIT material." So, you know, I was angry and basically wanted to choke him. And because I was so discouraged and angry at the fact that this guy was telling me that I couldn't do something that I knew in my heart of hearts I was capable of doing.